Hello everyone on YouTube. I have a jam-packed video here full of Warhammer The Old World battle reports, and at the very end I also have a tournament report that I played in very recently. All of these games are going to be at 1750 points, and if you're curious why, the tournament at the very end was at 1750 points. So we wanted to get in as many games as possible, me and kind of the local crew of armies I'm sure you've noticed frequently featured on the channel here. All wanted to get as many games in as we could around this point range and try to figure out what we might be expecting to see in people's lists at the tournaments and what we should bring and all of that stuff. We played in about 8 practice games, and then the tournament itself was a best of 3 games. I would say probably about 8 different factions are going to be featured across these various battle reports. So, yeah, quite a bit to talk about, I would say. And I'll do my best to be quick about summarizing the lists and the games and just hitting the key points on each of the battles. So this isn't a 4-hour-long Warhammer battle report video. So for the first game, I'm going to be busting out my halflings. I haven't featured them on the channel in quite a while, but the fall is rolling in, and it's kind of an army all themed around that season, so I thought it would be nice to get it on the channel. I also thought they would be a good practice army for my opponents to go up against. The Empire has a lot of versatility in its army roster, so it's very easy to get a little bit of everything involved with it, and that's kind of what I wanted to do with this list. It's got a greatsword block that's a pretty solid melee unit. It's got a war machine in the steam tank. I have a unit of the Inner Circle Knights, I believe that's what they're called. They're the special version, not the core version, the one that can take plate armor. Got a unit of 6 of those. And yeah, just a couple of spearmen units, 5x4 with handgun detachments. Not really much else other than a level 2 wizard, warrior, priest, general, and a BSB all stuck into the greatsword block. But none of them are really kitted out too much. Like, the general's just got a defensive loadout with a bedazzled helm, plate armor, and like a greatsword. The warrior priest has just hand weapon shield, I'm pretty sure. Same with the BSB. I did give the BSB the dragon bow because he has the same ballistic skills as the general, and I figured if he's just going to be standing there, he might as well be popping shots off in the unit. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. I also might have given the general rifle, so he can also contribute in range agitation of enemy units. The ogre list that we're going up against is 3 ogre bulls. They're accompanied by an ogre bruiser. He's got 4 saber tusks, and they are accompanied by an ogre hunter. He might have a throwing spear and a magic hand weapon. I can't quite recall what it was. They got a giant, 6 iron guts, or it might be 5 iron guts, and then an ogre tyrant that's also in the unit, 3 man-eaters, and 3 lead belchers. And that's going to sum up both of our lists here. I'm the only one that has a wizard in this game, so when we rolled for spells, these are the spells I got. I'm not going to lie, I think I got the absolute best possible results when it came to rolling for those spells. And yeah, battle will begin here. You can see our initial battle lines that we kind of set up for deployment. I think the ogres got the first turn, and they're going to just kind of do a cautious advance forward. I just chip away at them as much as possible. I drop that pillar of fire down, and it's going to wreak havoc across the battlefield. I remember I did some damage to the man-eaters, then I had it bounce to the iron guts, and yeah, it just kind of continued to get in the way of both of those units as they advance forward throughout the game. Other than some range attacks from me, I'm also moving my spearmen blocks forward a bit. I want them to be positioned to take a charge from the ogres and then hopefully not lose by too much. They'll fall back in good order and set up a counter charge for my other units. I was going to do the same thing with my greatswords, having a spearman block kind of support them, but he feigned an attack on my flank, I remember. He had the giant, and the lead belchers seemed like they were going to run around on the far flank early on in the game, so I wanted the spearmen there just to brace for that charge, and I figured while that was happening, I could use the greatswords and the steam tank and the range support I have on that hill nearby to kind of punch through whatever he had in the middle. And hopefully all that could happen in a quick enough course of time that the spearmen would be able to hold long enough, and I could either reposition to deal with the aftermath on that flank, or it would kind of be irrelevant by a later stage in the battle, and I could just shift my battle lines away from there. But none of that ends up really happening. He actually just diverts both of those units around that house towards my greatswords, and my spearmen are just going to be playing catch-up for the rest of the battle. While that great debate of what I should do on the flank was happening, he decided to charge the other spear unit on the opposite flank with his Ogre Bulls and the Iron Gut unit. Now, you can tell, obviously, these units have gotten whittled down quite a bit over their course of running across the battlefield on these first couple of turns. And I wanted this unit of spears to get charged, but I wasn't really picturing all these units making into combat. I think their odds of falling back in good order are looking a little slim here. I think they're just going to get absolutely crushed, but we'll see what happens. And even if that does happen, I have a unit of handguns that could kind of catch an overrun potentially, and be favorable for me when it's my turn coming up, because I have a unit of inner circle knights positioned on the far flank there, ready to countercharge any type of situation that might unfold there. And while that combat was happening, he kind of wanted to use it as a screen for his hunter, the Saber Tusk, and the Gorgers to advance forward, so they're kind of sneaking in behind that combat. The remainder of my range is just focusing down the Man-Eaters. I might have had a Cannonball or the Dragon Bow going into that giant, getting a couple of lucky wounds, can't quite recall. But he's going to win that combat against the spears and pretty much run down what's remaining of that unit, and he'll overrun into a unit of handgunners, and he's going to run down that unit as well. And that's going to happen with the Iron Guts. My knights weren't able to catch them because he had two units there, and unfortunately the bulls were kind of positioned on the flank of the Iron Guts to protect them, so I had to go into the Ogre Bulls. But that combat went really well for me, and I want to say I finished off that unit before the game ends, but they might have fallen back in good order and I was unable to get the points there. The steam tank decides to lunge forward and runs down that Gorger as it was trying to sneak behind that big melee line that was shifting back and forth there. I saw an opening in the lines, and the steam tank just went right for the Gorger. I think it overran afterwards and might have gone into the hunter. And at that stage, we pretty much decided to call the battle. It was a victory for the Empire. He did get the Giant in on the final turn for a charge against the Greatswords, but I don't remember the combat results from that being too notable. I don't think it was a miraculous victory for the Giant. I don't even recall killing him with the Greatsword, so it might have just kind of been a stalemate at the end there for that little matchup. Closer game than I expected, to be honest. My range was pretty devastating during this battle, but at the very end, he managed to just have a couple of units limping away, denying me like the full points from scoring from them. And I think in that regard, it actually was a little bit closer than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, he only got my spearman unit. He either killed it or like I had like 4 or 5 guys left. He would have gotten points even in that situation, but he got some points in the spearman. The handgunner detachment I had as well, and I think when you add that up and then like the fact he had a couple of units limping away, the point in difference wasn't really that bad, but it was enough that it was a victory for the halflings and their first of their showings on these battle reports. And the next one is going to have the halflings going up against the forces of the undead. The vampire counts are here! So I took the same list as last time, and you can see I did a similar kind of battle formation, just changed up a couple of things, had the handgunners spread out because the hills weren't quite the same as my layout for the last one. But yeah, similar formation to last time. The vampire counts took a ton of ghouls. They had 2 units of hex wraiths, and they were 2 by 3, so they were in marching formation, and they weren't planning on getting in combat. They just wanted to fly through my units and cut through their souls with their great weapons. Yeah, he's got like 3 units, I think, of 15 ghouls. It might be more, might be less. One of the units is accompanied by a vampire thrall. He's got a unit of 6 crypt horrors. A unit of 20 zombies. I think that's just like a bunker for his necromancer. He's just going to increase their numbers throughout the game and pretty much make it a very unappealing option for me to ever charge into unless I just want to get tar pitted for the entire game. He also has a Banshee and a Crane Wraith hiding amongst the ranks of the ghouls. Also, too, just so you know, those 15 Graveguard, they're all kind of spread out, are just being proxied for ghouls. He has ghouls, he just didn't have them all built up for this, and he just wanted to try out the list. So that's why those Graveguard are all spread out like that. Those are proxies for ghouls. And first turn, I think, went to the vampire counts. He's going to move up very quickly with those hex rates. Maybe a little bit too quickly, because I will be set up to do some charging and shooting shenanigans with them when it's my turn. The rest of his army is just going to advance forward as fast as the undead can. I think he had enough spells kind of spread out with the Necromancer and the Thrall to cast, it was either Hellish Vigor or Dance of Macabre. They, changed what the spells did, but one of those gives you, a movement boost during the shooting phase. You get, a free movement action or something like that. So he was moving up fairly quick for undead, I would say. And he also had a really, like I said, large formation of ghouls. And most of them are taken in skirmish formation, so he had this very large line of screening ghouls covering his advance, and I didn't really have many other opportunities of shooting attacks when it came to my handgunners, so a lot of times I'm going to end up shooting at those ghouls, and my results really aren't the best when it came to range for this game. However, those hex rates on the left side are going to get caught by a fireball. I'm going to kill half of the unit there. And the unit on the right side is going to get charged by my Inner Circle Knights. I think I gave the champion of the unit a flaming sword just so he could have some easy magic attacks and maybe take down some trolls or some inopportune regen opponents. And that will let him get a couple of wounds in on the hex rates. If I didn't give him that, what ended up happening was I got a flank charge. I did my drilled formation to put him in a rank, so my guys that aren't doing attacks are going to go in the back, and we were 3x2, so I'll get a rank bonus. I got a banner, I got a flank, and basically through combat res, and I think the wound or two that I did with that sword on my champion, I was able to delete the Hex Wraith unit that blitzed up on the right side. However, that left side unit is going to sneak around my flank and continue to be a pain in my butt throughout the rest of this game. While the undead advanced forward, I wanted to position my spearmen blocks a little bit ahead of my range units and the great swords. I also wanted to get the steam tank a bit far forward. It's great for just stalling units up or just wreaking havoc if people want to ignore it, just punching through the enemy line and then coming back around. I've had to do that a few times and seems to be able to do that in the old world as well. Eventually, the undead are going to clash with one of my forward spear blocks. He's going to have one of the big units of ghouls that's accompanied by the Crane Wraith fight them. And what actually happens here is interesting. He clashes with my unit, and I'm going to fall back in good order and basically have my greatsword unit charge them when it's my turn following up. They were a little bit better suited for that battle. And that spearman unit, funny enough, is actually going to shift over to the right side and charge into combat or get charged by that other unit of ghouls that also has a Crane Wraith. And that will be quite a combat. I think they're going to go 4 rounds back and forth. He will get the better of that situation. He'll either kill my unit off or he'll reduce it to just a couple of men. I remember I did not kill enough of the ghouls in that unit to get scoring points, so that was a good little exchange for the undead there. But my great swords are going up against those ghouls now that have the vampire thrall, and obviously they might have lost a couple of guys when they initially charged into my spear unit, but I don't think they were worse for wear, and they might have even resurrected those losses by the time we got in for this combat with my great swords. First round goes terrible. I was really surprised. I think I gave a bit of ground or something like that, and the undead decided not to pursue. And that was the one opportunity that I had to kind of spin the combat around because I lost the first round. I decided to just have my guys go as wide a line as possible, and when the ghouls decide to charge into me and get the second round of the combat going, I should be able to get a lot more attacks in. And that is when I managed to kind of swing the odds there. He kills a lot of my greatswords before that combat ends, though, easily reducing them below half. But we do end up killing the ghouls, the Crane Wraith, and the Vampire Thrall by the end of the game there. On the opposite side of the battlefield, we had a lot of kind of positioning and dancing around. I had my spearman block moving up, hoping to absorb a charge from the crypt horrors, but the crypt horrors just kept backing up. He just kept resurrecting or summoning new units of zombies in front of my spearmen, delaying them further and further. And he would also summon them on the flanks of the crypt horrors, so my knights couldn't get in for a clean charge. And yeah, I ended up just kind of getting delayed, maybe until like the very last turn of this game here, where I finally get a combined charge in. I think I get a couple of spearmen in on the crypt horrors and a unit of zombies that he has flanking them, and most of my knights all make it into contact with the crypt horrors. That combat didn't go amazing for either of us. I don't think any of us ended up scoring on each other at the end of the game there, but it was a combat that was long overdue and just constantly getting delayed by shenanigans. I had that steam tank and I wanted to get it involved in there, but the stuff that was delaying everything up so much, it ended up being pointless, and I had to spin the thing around, have it try to chase down some of the crypt horror units on the far flank where the spearmen and the greatswords were positioned. I had to try to go over there near the end of the game, but it really didn't end up doing much either than just some range attacks every now and then. I had a steam gun get a nice little shot off here. You can see on some crypt ghoul or just normal ghouls at the very end, but yeah, really didn't end up doing much. My range on the hill didn't end up doing too much. It actually got deleted by a breakthrough unit of crypt ghouls near the very end. And yeah, it was a pretty bloody battle. He deleted a unit of handgunners, maybe two. He got my spearman unit. I did manage to get scoring points on at least one of the crypt ghoul units, getting them below half. I deleted the other one and killed some of the characters. I also destroyed one of the Hex Wraith units and got another one reduced below half. All things considered, I think it was an extremely close game. Maybe even closer than the last one. Seriously, we both killed a pretty good chunk of each other's army here and just barely had a couple of units within scoring positions of each other, or either just barely avoiding it or just barely getting in. So yeah, it was really, really close. And I think we might have screwed some stuff up when it came to calculating the victory points here. So, I kind of hesitate to even say that the halflings got an extremely narrow victory here. It might have actually been a tied match. But when we initially calculated it out, I do think they got the victory. And yeah, good game nonetheless, though. Now, this next battle report I am going to be very, very quick on because I actually didn't play in it. I only, spectated about half of the game, but it was between the Ogre army and the Vampire Count army that you just saw in the prior battles that we talked about here, and it's the same lists from those battles. So I thought it would just kind of be cool to throw in the results from this game, even if I didn't really get a proper battle report or footage for it. The ogres have a lot of stuff positioned on the far flank where that giant is. I see the hunter, the saber tusks, and majority of his melee lines there. It looks like he's just got the lead belchers holding down that far flank. And again, even though I didn't play in this battle, I recall hearing the post-battle report that those lead belchers, and he actually has that gorger there as well, kind of tucked into the corner, but those units do not end up doing well when it comes to holding that flank down. I think the opposite side, where he's so heavily positioned, he is kind of able to overwhelm majority of the undead's numbers. But gradually, this battle is going to shift its lines towards the center. And once that happens, there's a bit of an envelopment that occurs amongst the ogres. And I think that's really the point where they get done in. A couple of miracles do occur during this game. I remember the giant got charged by, the 6 crypt horrors, and by some miracle, he ended up winning the combat. I don't think he killed the unit off or anything, but, yeah, he ended up doing some work on the crypt horrors. The spirit host just kind of ran amok during this game, and I think that the ogres might have taken a ruby ring, but he was just unable to get the ruby ring fireball off and get damage in. And he does get lucky, though. His man-eater captain, I think, had a sword of... He was maybe the sword of +1 attack or the sword of +1 to hit, can't remember. But he had a magic sword and managed to get a good charge in on the Hex Wraiths, and he does delete that one unit, but the other one's going to kind of just have free reign on the battlefield. An annoying crane wraith is going to tie up his saber tusks, the hunter, and the giant. And while that's happening, I think the Iron Guts are in a losing battle with their tyrant against the crypt horrors. A little surprised to see that. It looks like they did kill a couple of the crypt horrors, but yeah, it must not have been the best game for them. On the opposite side, he does manage to clear out that initial force that kind of lunged forward at the man-eaters. And they're going to push forward and try to support those ogre bulls with the bruiser that are in the center area there. That's kind of what I was talking about when they're going to get enveloped in and surrounded. I mean, honestly, it doesn't look too bad for the ogres right now. Maybe even like they might have the upper hand. But I think it was either with some magical shenanigans from the Wizards of the Undead, or some poor dice rolling maybe from the ogres, that things kind of just fall apart here in the center. Somehow the man-eaters end up crumbling. I think the lead belchers are put into a compromised situation, and yeah, the ogre bulls as well, I think, end up turning tail. Again, I'm not sure if it was actually leadership tests or dice rolling or what actually happened there, because it looked like the ogres had something of a favorable position, but yeah, by the end here, they're barely left with anything, and ended up being a clear victory for the undead. Next battle report is the ogres fighting against an allied force. The vampire counts and the lizard men decide to split a 1750 list in half, so they each built two separate lists, like accommodating all the percentages and stuff that they needed to for that smaller force, and then combined it together so it would be 1750. Vampire Counts decided to take the Black Coach. I think he took a unit of 15 Graveguard. They probably have a Necromancer accompanying them. He's got 5 Dire Wolves, and the Lizardman player decided to take 10 Saurus Warriors, 5 Cold Ones, and a Carnosaur Lord that's got all kinds of magical gear to destroy anyone he can get into combat with. And the ogres are playing with the same army that we've seen in the other earlier parts of my little battle report video here. So again, this is a battle I missed out on actually playing in, so I'm sure I'm going to get some details wrong, and I'll try to be on the briefer side. But the Black Coach is going to kind of swing around that graveyard past the giant. I think it was ethereal at the time, so it was able to do that. And then it's going to materialize right in front of those Iron Guts and charge right into them. And unfortunately, it's going to get deleted. I think most of the Dire Wolves, if not all of them, also are going to get deleted by the Ogre shooting before they're able to do much in this battle. You can't really see it in the picture here, but the Cold One Knights and the Carnosaur Lord are positioned on the far left, and you can kind of see the Carnosaur Lord charged in and deleted those Lead Belchers pretty efficiently. And it's going to move around the far flank, eventually threatening those Iron Guts that are currently occupied with that Black Coach. The Cold One Knight's got a nice flank charge on the Lead Belchers, but I think they end up kind of whiffing their roll pretty bad and somehow end up losing that combat, and I think falling back in good order. And yeah, I would say things are not looking too great initially here for the Vampire Counts or the Lizardmen. You can see the Carnosaur Lord, though. He's kind of getting ready to do a little swing around and go into those Iron Guts, so things could kind of change there. And they do have some troops reforming a bit of a line in front of the Lead Belchers and the Man-Eaters. I don't know if it was a Necromancer 100%. He might have had a Vampire, but looks like he was able to resurrect a couple of those Dire Wolves during some of the downtime in between the turns there. I'm not quite sure what the Gorger's tied in combat with, but it looks like it's locked in combat kind of near that skeleton bunker. And the Giant is coming around to cause a havoc on the flank of this army. The Lead Belchers and the Man-Eaters are going to clash, and we got a big battle line forming in the middle there. It looks like the skeleton bunker is going to take the brunt of it. Hopefully they'll be able to get work done there quick before that Giant closes the gap behind them. I will say, though, those Saurus Warriors are also pretty close by, and you can tell that the Iron Guts have been completely deviated from that battle over there and are forced to deal with the Saurus champion on that Carnosaur. That combat's going to eventually go down, and you can tell that the Saurus Warriors also close in eventually with the main battle line at the center of the board. I don't really know what was going on with the Giant. Looks like he stalled up in the pivotal moments. I don't think he has stupidity anymore. Maybe he does, but yeah, something clearly happened there, and he stalled up. And yeah, second game in a row, it seems like the Lead Belchers and the Man-Eaters just really couldn't end up getting things done. It looks like they did a lot of damage to the skeleton bunker, but they just weren't able to hold up and took some pretty heavy casualties there. I think both units are going to get defeated, unfortunately. The Giant and the Gorger, I don't quite know where it went off to, but eventually both of them do close into the rear of the skeleton bunker and reduce it to just the characters, I guess, by the very end here. But unfortunately, I guess they weren't able to kill those characters off at the very end. And yeah, now I'm going to go into what happened with the Iron Guts and the Saurus Old Blood or Cold Blood, whatever it is, on the Carnosaur, that battle. So the Lizardmen player decided to challenge the Ogre to a duel, and the Ogre player had a pretty kitted out Tyrant for melee inside of that unit, so he figured why not, it could be a fun battle. But unfortunately, the results got a little bit messed up for this game, kind of right here when this happened. The Lizardman players have a magical item that gives -1 to hit, and he combined that with the Bedazzled Helm, which not his fault, unfortunately, if you read the rulebook, you can take that item on a character like this, but Games Workshop FAQ'd it and basically said you can't do that anymore. You can only be on foot, or you can be on like a horse, basically, or like any kind of basic like cav type model, if you want to have this item, and the Carnosaur is considered like a monstrous creature. So yeah, he couldn't use that, and it was giving like -2, basically making it so the Ogre player like would hit him on 6s, which kind of skewed the results, I think, a little bit for the duel. And in addition to that, I think he got confused with the italicized text for the Carnosaur. It has like a multi-wound ability, but it's only supposed to work on large monsters, and he's only monstrous infantry, which isn't a large enough unit type to like get that special rule involved. And basically he like did a couple of wounds, they multiplied into a ton of additional wounds. The Ogre was unable to get any attacks on the Saurus guy on the Carnosaur. And yeah, everything kind of got messed up from that, and the Iron Guts really weren't able to deal much damage during the follow-up turns. I don't even know if there were follow-up turns. Maybe the combat result just completely swayed and the Ogres broke. But yeah, things obviously got really messed up from this, and it's just there's a lot of special rules in Warhammer. These things happen, and it does kind of suck though, because that was a lot of points and like a very big thing in the game. It's for that reason that, like, I am going to say, like, this game was a tie. They kind of agreed with it. The results kind of got messed up pretty bad from all of that. And, yeah, so we're going to end this game with a tie. Kind of a messed up challenge, unfortunately, but still some interesting stuff that happened in this game. We had a good little center combat unfold there, and, yeah, the undead barely managed to limp away from this battle with only a couple of units remaining. So, yeah, good game still nonetheless. The next game we got here is a battle between the Halflings and the Lizardmen. This was an earlier list that the Lizardman player designed. I guess the best way I could describe it is it's pretty well balanced. I say that because he has a wizard. Now it's only a level 2 skink priest, but it's going to do some magic. He has a Saurus champion or a Saurus Old Blood that's on foot, and he's going to be pretty kitted out for combat. He also has an ally force of high elves to go with this army. I think he has a level 2 elf sorceress in their force. It might be level 4, but I don't think he could have afforded that at this point percentage, so I think it was a level 2. He also had some, they're basically like Glade Guard, but they can like take skirmish formation and some fancy arrows. He took like 10 or 15 of those, I think. And he didn't have the minis for them, but he wanted to take 2 of the repeater bolt throwers that the High Elves have. So if you're wondering what those halfling hot pots are on the battlefield, those are bolt proxies for the Elven repeater bolt throwers. Moving back to the actual lizards in this list, he took a Stegodon, he had a Bastillodon, he had 5 Cold One Knights, 20 Saurus Warriors, I think they had full command, and then 2 units of, I want to say, 15 Skinks, and a Salamander. I think that is about everything for the Lizardmen, and you know what the Halflings are taking? Same thing I had in all the other battle reports so far here. So the Lizardmen decided to take a bit of a spread out, just full line across the battlefield style formation. But there is a little bit of method to the madness here. He's got the Elven Alliance force deployed on the far left side of this picture here. And I'd also argue the Stegodon, the Cold Ones, you know, the Salamander. He's kind of got some heavy hitters also on that side. And on the right side, it's a little bit more of the slow and steady advance force. I have my battle line set to what's been typical in the other games so far. You know, the spearman units on the flanks to kind of slow down any hard hitters from wrapping around. Great swords in the middle. Only thing I did a little bit different this time around was I had enough deployment distance to kind of weasel in the steam tank in front of the great swords. I wanted it to kind of lunge out there and delay this Lizardman advance as much as possible. Maybe even punch through and start dealing some damage from like a wraparound charge if possible. I think the Lizardmen get the first turn, and not too much happens on these first couple of turns other than me taking some shots of opportunity, and the Lizardmen are trying to take some of the same thing, some shots of opportunity, but unfortunately their range is a little bit shorter on average across the board here. His Elven Archers don't really have the best line of sight on targets currently. It won't be like till about the halfway point that they're going to start dealing some good range damage. Unfortunately, his Cold Ones, as you can see here, kind of just stumble forward on the first two turns, failing their stupidity test twice in a row. We weren't 100% sure if the cold-blooded rule applies to the stupidity test, but he was using it for it, so it was kind of hilarious that he failed it twice in a row, even with the cold-blooded rule helping him out. I don't know what the odds were on that, but pretty unlucky for the Lizardmen at the start here in that regard. The bolt throwers are going to just not really do too much the entire game. I wasn't sure if it was just the fact he didn't have the best line of sight, the best targets, or maybe it was the fact he should have been doing multi-shots instead of single shots, or vice versa. It's been a little while since we played this game, so I can't quite remember all the details, but I just remember looking at the end of the game, and we kind of did their body count, and like maybe they killed like 6 or 7 spearmen over the entire game. It wasn't really the most impressive performance from them, but I'm sure they could do better in certain situations. It's just the way they were used in this one, it just really didn't seem like they were doing too much. And the Stegodon also has those little poisonous blowpipe, like rapid fire gun things on its side. Eventually, it's going to start getting in range and shooting those off. It'll pick off a couple of my great swords, also some of the spearmen, kind of on the left side there. Other than that, though, really not too much else from the Lizardmen and their range in this game. My range is going to diminish those Cold One Knights down to just a few by the time they finally make it into contact. I'm going to kill most of the skink units off before they even make it into contact as well. And that's about it from my range. I might have done a couple of shots like with the Dragon Bow on the Stegodon, but we don't really deal too many wounds to it. Eventually the Lizardmen are going to make it up to the halfway point on the board here, probably around turn 3. Now, I said this is a pretty balanced Lizardman force, so they had like a good amount of range and magic mixed in here. So he wasn't really lunging quite in to get the attacks as quick as possible. I remember that. Also, you know, the Cold One Knights failing their stupidity twice in a row kind of delayed the charge on the left side here. But yeah, it was a little bit of a cautious advance, and I was kind of winning the range war, if I'm being honest. And it's just going to kind of continue that way till the final turns pretty much of this game. By the time we get to turn 5 or 6, the only real melee combats we have going down are one with the Cold One Knights, my handgunner detachment unit in the woods. They will finish off the detachment, but the Knights are also going to get finished off by the remainder of my range units. His Salamander is going to get a shot on my Spearman unit next to the Great Swords. It's going to roast a couple of them, not really dealing too much damage though. I decided for fun, why not have the steam tank charge in on the final turn, try to get some maybe cheeky blows on the Stegodon, but really, I don't even think we ended up wounding each other. It was pretty uneventful. You can see my Spearmen also managed to catch the last couple of skinks, and I think I finished that unit off on the final turn. And that was really about it for this game. Unfortunately, those Sars warriors were kind of advancing a little bit too slow, and they didn't want to cross that no man's land area because I had so much range on the other side. They were a little too nervous. So, yeah, really kind of a quick game, a lot of shooting back and forth, and it seemed like the Empire's range was just enough to be able to come up on top here. I don't have a ton of photos of this battle, or actually the rematch battle that we did immediately after this. But again, he ended up losing a couple of skink units. I think the Cold One Knights also ended up getting deleted by the end of this, or they were below half, and I scored some points off that. And the only thing he really got points on this game was my handgunner detachment. So it was a victory for the halflings. But we decided we were going to get another practice game in, like I said, pretty much immediately after this. He wanted to change his list up quite a bit, though. I'm going to be taking the same thing in that game, so I'll go over the Lizardman's list in round 2 here of the Halflings versus the Lizardmen. Now, again, I only have a few pictures of this battle, but I'll be sure to hit the key moments of everything that went down during this game. So I'm just going to use this one to go over the Lizardman's list really quick here and what he changed up. In regards to the High Elf ally force, he ditched the repeater bolt throwers, just kept the, I don't know what they're called, but the Elven Archer, like pseudo Glade Guard unit that the High Elves have, kept those, and he kept the Wizard. He is also going to take a level 4 Slann Mage Priest and a level 2 Skink Priest, so you can see there's a heavy magic theme going on in this list. I think he has a unit of 10 Temple Guard. He has a unit of 10 Sars Warriors. I want to say each of them have a banner and a champion. He has a Stegodon, and I believe he has 2 units of Skinks, and I want to say they're each 15 this time around. And that's about everything. So in this game, the Skinks that are accompanied by the Skink Priest are going to lunge up really quick, and he's going to use the Slann Mage ability to cast through him to cause some magical vortex shenanigans kind of across the battlefield as much as possible. I think he has the Tsunami spell on 2 of his wizards, so he's just going to be like trying to block line of sight, drench my guys throughout this game. I know he also got that Fire Tempest spell, so he's dropping like the Flame Vortex spell on me. Yeah, a lot of damage and shenanigans with vortexes. I saw that fence in Chapel and decided to be a little bit aggressive this game and lunge up forward, take some defensive positions around that fence, and see what happens. I also just kind of wanted to get some of these units involved in a melee. I know the last game was a little bit less exciting. I also, hard to see in the picture here, but I had my Knights of the Inner Circle try to move up the far left flank of the board. But unfortunately, they start getting pelted by the Elven Arrows, and I want to say the Stegodon's Poisonous Blowpipes, and the Fire Vortexes over there as well. And it wasn't long before, like, I lost 2 of my 6 Knights, like, just from the first turn moving up. And then I had a Vortex placed in front of me, and I could realize, like, yeah, I am in no way going to make it up this board. I am just going to get mowed down, and it's not going to be good. So they pretty much turn around and retreat behind that tent in the woods over there and try to block line of sight from any of the Wood Elf Lizardman shots. Or, sorry, High Elf Lizardman shots. On the far right side, I have, like, just a handgunner detachment holding that flank down against an encroaching unit of, like, 10 or 15 skinks. They actually do a pretty good job and mow most of them down. I might end up losing the unit at the very end to a fireball from the Skink Priest, but yeah, I at least get, like, half scoring points on them. I was pretty proud of their performance this game, actually. What ends up kind of tipping the scale in my favor, and we had some debate because my opponent wasn't sure how many wounds exactly it was, or maybe I was insisting it was a different amount, but I get a couple of cheeky wounds with my handgunners on that Stegodon as it's advancing forward. And that in combination with the dragon bow and like a cannonball shot from my steam tank is going to be enough to end up killing it by the end of this game. So that was a lot of points there. As you can see, my steam tank lunged forward and very early on in this game decided to charge a unit of skinks that were positioned behind that fence. They ended up retreating and eventually just running around the side of the house, and it was a little frustrating. I tried to have my steam tank charge into a ton of different targets. Everything just kind of ended up retreating and just moving out of my charge arc as much as possible, and it was hard to like get it into combat with anything during this game, but I was spinning it around, I was having it take shots every turn, like I said, using the cannonball to finish off the Stegodon, and it was putting in work this game. I think it did on the very final turn manage to get a charge in finally on one of the Sars Warriors or something and get a couple of wounds in, but That was most of its performance this game. It was just a bit of a wild card, and everyone was just running away and avoiding it and just staying out of its charge arc as best as possible. So, if you're curious about what kind of melees ended up breaking out this game, because in this picture here, again, I'm sorry I don't have a ton of photos for this game, but this is probably like turn 3 if I had to guess right now. Like, it looks like there's about to be some melee clashes that are going to go down. Well, no, actually, none really go down this game, other than like my Steam tank managing to maybe get a charge in on the final turn. And the reason for that, I don't think it's my fault. I think it's this dang Lizard Man player's fault. Because he puts those, the Maelstrom or the Tsunami, whatever it is, the water template things. He's putting those large template down right now, that spell, on top of my Spearman unit. And he has it, like, on top of my Greatsword unit. Like, probably on turn 3 or so. Now, it might scatter a random direction, so it's not entirely his fault, but he basically puts these things on top of my units, so I can't actually charge anything, because I technically don't have line of sight while I'm inside of it. And if I move out of it, or I do, like, say I could charge something, I'd have to make dangerous terrain tests on everything. It counts as dangerous terrain if I try to move or do anything in there. So basically I have to stay put. But what ends up happening too is it blocks line of sight for his unit, so he can't charge me either. And like, you can understand my point of view. I'm not going to just move my guys like out of this thing, take like 20 dangerous terrain tests on my unit, like, and then just set myself up to get charged on the following turn. It makes no sense. So that's why, like, again, we had a second game here with no melee combats other than like that chariot for the whole game. So kind of ridiculous, kind of funny if I'm being honest. But we might have ended up calling this one a draw, but I think I got at least half scoring points on 2 of the skink units, maybe only 1. I know I killed the Stegodon at the very end. He might have got half scoring points on my Knights of the Inner Circle during this game, and scoring points on that handgunner unit at the very end. I think he did kill it with a fireball. So what might have ended up happening was there wasn't enough victory points for us to call it a victory for the Empire, and it was a draw. But yeah, I mean, pretty dang close. I think, again, it did end up being a draw, even though I was a little surprised, because, like, I figured the Stegodon was worth a lot of points and a couple of other things, but I guess it is what it is. But still, really, really fun game. Both of those games, actually, with the Lizardmen. Even though we didn't have much melee, there was a lot of shooting and spell shenanigans. These next 2 battles, I have, like, even less documentation on, unfortunately, so I am literally just going to hit some of the key highlights, because I thought they were interesting, and if you just want to, like, look at the picture and kind of see what the armies roughly are, you can feel free to do that. But we had a 2v1 game here, where my buddy was playing Warriors of Chaos. He always has, like, a bit of a Khorne theme to his army. And I happen to own a Tzeentch army, so I figured, you know what, I'll play my Tzeentch force, you can play your Khorne force, and we divided it up evenly, did, like, perfect, like, you know what I mean, like, proper percentages and stuff for our individual armies, then put it together for that 1750-point list, and we went up against the undead, the vampire counts, with a 1750 list. Now, again, I'm just going to be hitting the key quick points here, because I know I only got, like, 3 photos for this battle, but what ended up happening was I slowly advance up with a very elite force. I have, like, chosen Chaos Knights with a wizard inside of it, and he's, like, level 2 and getting a bonus because of the unit size for being a pseudo level 3 caster. And I took, like, the bare minimum, like, needed percentage for Chaos Warriors as well. And yeah, this unit's just moving up with the knights, and they are just kind of casting spells, harassing the undead, and encroaching in. And the undead have a unit of their own knights. They have those spirit, what are they called, hex rates, and they have like their main zombie bunker kind of responding to my side of the board. On the opposite side, they've got those crypt horrors, and they just get slaughtered by the Chaos Warriors. He ends up sending, like, I think a unit of ghouls and another, like, big block of zombies at the Chaos Warriors. Everything he sends at the Khorne side just gets slaughtered. I remember talking to my ally about, like, the Warriors of Chaos in this game, and it was probably the best performance we've seen from, like,
specifically Warriors of Chaos, like the Foot Infantry. This is like the best game they have had so far. And granted, it's not the most crazy matchups they're fighting against in this game. You know, Crypt Horrors are no joke, but like the rest of the roster isn't too crazy. Just normal ghouls and zombies should be something a Warrior of Chaos can deal with easily. But yeah, he burned through that army in like 2 or 3 turns. By the end of the game, we were both sandwiching in that zombie bunker to the right of the chapel there. And it was pretty much done for. They ended up calling it on the final turn before like we even got a chance to finish off the whole unit. My knights end up doing nothing this entire game. They just kind of position themselves and incinerate a couple of the hex rates. You can see there are only 2 left, but they weren't able to deal any damage to us. And yeah, I just kind of dance around positioning to charge those Black Knights, but then the Black Knights back up, and then I move forward, and they continue to back up, and yeah, nothing really ends up happening between us. It was a battle of positioning, and my expensive unit of like, probably, I don't even know, like 60% of my army, 75% of my army probably, didn't end up doing anything this entire game other than killing 4 hex rates. The Warriors of Khorne literally did everything that we needed to win this battle. You can see by the end here, like that whole left side just got completely decimated. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit more of a detailed breakdown after this quick little battle report of my dwarves, because this is the list I'm going to be taking in the tournament part of the video here. And I only got 1 photo of this battle, so I feel like it'll be better spent energy to do that later. But the undead, the vampire counts are back here for the final battle report before we get to the tournaments. And yeah, I will be very quick with this one. He took the Mortis engine and whatever, like the Throne of Blood, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but the other like big undead chariot floating thing. He took both of those in this list. One of them went up the hill towards my dwarven handgunners. They're positioned on the left side towards the hill, and the other one slammed into my slayers. He had 2 units of dire wolves that kind of just tried to make contact quickly with my units. Surprisingly, the ones that are on the cannon on the right side actually, I think, got repelled by the cannon crew, so good job on them. And yeah, the other unit kind of just got gunned down crossing the field. He actually might have had 3 of them. One of them got killed going across the battlefield, and then one managed to make it into contact at the end there. He also had a unit of Fellbats that got shot down during this game. He had a big unit of zombies that ended up clashing with my dwarven rangers positioned on the far left side of the battlefield. I sent a Doomseeker in to help him in that battle, and we end up winning that. And yeah, the Mortis engine, or I believe it was the Mortis engine. It was the one that went up the hill and slammed into my unit. Took a lot of shots on the way in, but just barely managed to hang in there. Unfortunately, though, when it came to the close combat, it did a lot of damage to my unit, especially with its impact hits, but the heroes and stuff that I had positioned inside that unit, as well as just a few extra attacks back, were able to finish it off and clear out any threats I had for that unit on the hill. The Blood Knights on the far right side, unfortunately, were a little bit blocked off this game from getting into juicy combats. I think on the final turn they end up making it into combat with my Slayers, but the Slayers take down the Throne of Blood that they were in combat with. They take down an advancing unit of, I think it was like skeletons or Graveguard that also kind of slam in. Well, they don't take them out. They just kind of push them back a little bit. Yeah, it was a pretty decisive victory for the dwarves here. We managed to shoot down both the thrones, take down all of his kind of chaff units along the way, and we definitely took some casualties. My unit on the hill there was reduced to half strength over the course of the battle. I probably lost half, if not more, of my Slayers during this battle as well, but the casualties on the undead side were far greater, so it was a solid victory for the dwarves, and that will be the end of this very brief battle report here. So, we have finally made it to the tournament section of the video. I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes here talking about the list that I took for all these games, and then we can get to the actual battles themselves. I've got 2 units of Dwarven Handgunners. I got a 9-man unit, and the other one is a 12-man. Each one's been upgraded to Marksman. We are running the Dwarven Expedition Force here. I gave them banners, champions, and shields. that's about it. We've got, I believe, 18 Slayers here, and they've got a mix of like 4 Giant Slayers, probably about like 4 Great Weapons, 6 additional hand weapons, or actually 8 or 9 additional hand weapons, and then just a couple of guys running with just a basic axe. And we've also got a Bugman Brew cart, so everyone can get a little movement boost within its aura bubble. I got 2 cannons that I gave the -1 toughness to because I want to be doing little movement shenanigan actions with them and being able to shoot while I do it. Maybe get some opportune grape shots if possible. And that's a... Oh, nope. And we got 10 Dwarven Rangers. And they've got crossbows, they've got shields. I gave them a champion, and that's about it for them. We also have 2 mercenaries, Dwarven Doom Seekers, and they're going to show up drunk for their first game, both of them, which is kind of hilarious. Not too much to know for their other games. They're actually pretty good for the rest of the battles we have here. But yeah, the first game they both showed up drunk and had stupidity, which I thought was pretty funny. The other characters, we've got quite a list. I have a Ruinsmith. He's got full plate armor. I gave him a shield and a great weapon. He's just there to give the unit of handgunners an extra bit of armor bane and everyone else inside of the unit. Thought it was kind of cool. And just a great weapon attack in case my unit gets into close combat. It's not bad. He's got a decent melee profile. We've got a Dwarven Engineer, that's the BSB. Now, I'm going to change this in a future list. I'm going to make him a Dwarven Thane and change his gun loadout a bit. But he's got the Bursting Flame Ruin, and he's got the Rapid Fire Ruin. I'm going to change that in the future list to make him a Dwarven Thane, a little bit more defensive, and give him the Accuracy Ruin on top of that, just because I think that's a better loadout. But that's what he is for this game. I have a Dwarven Sapper who's just got the, the Ruin of Rapid Fire. I wasn't really sure what to do with the last couple points, ended up just giving him that. He's attached to that 9-man handgunner unit. The Ruinsmith's attached to the bigger handgunner unit. I took Burlock for this game. I have mixed feelings about him, but he's really cheap, and I kind of think he gives you a lot of bang for your buck. He's attached to the larger handgunner unit as well. We also have a Dwarven Demon Slayer that is just kitted out for as many attacks as possible. Yeah, he just took tons of ruins for that. He also ignores armor saves, and yeah, just pure offensive on that guy. He does have the 2-up ward, the one-time use 2-up ward save ruin. And he has the one that gives ignores difficult terrain or dangerous terrain for his unit as well. He has that too. I think that's all the characters. A little bit of an extensive list. I got like 5 characters and then 2 of the Doom Seekers. So yeah, quite a bit of characters to remember. But that's kind of the way to go. It seems like in the old world, you want a lot of heroes. So we're embracing that fully with this list. So the first battle was the Battle for the Watchtower scenario. We weren't playing with any of the sides, like starting with control of it, or you could garrison the building. It was just there in the center, and if you had majority units, like within the bubble, to take control of it, you basically get, like, extra victory points. So I don't know what the chances were of this happening on the very first game, but we are going up against another dwarf player, and ironically, he also has a Dwarven Expedition Force, and really a similar list to me. He's got a big block of Slayers, a bigger block than mine, but a huge block of Dwarven handgunners, 2 cannons. The only thing, like, he didn't take that I took was, like, I took, like, more handgunners, I guess, since I had, like, 2 separate units. He took, like, a bunch of gyro scouts and one of the big gyro bombers, or I think he had the gyro scouts and then the normal gyrocopters is what I meant to say. He also had a big unit of Dwarven Rangers. I think he took, like, 15 of them. So I deployed in a bit of a traditional Dwarven defensive formation in a corner. He's spread out a little bit more and definitely going to be a little bit more aggressive, which makes sense. He's got those gyrocopters, he can advance forward a little bit more quickly. He also has a bigger unit of Rangers, and they're already on my flank, so yeah, makes sense that he wants to be a little bit more aggressive, and I'm probably going to be a little bit more defensive. But I got the roll for first turn. I have one of my cannons pluck off one of his on the first turn. He hid his other cannon behind a hill, so I couldn't really do that if I got the first turn roll, which was pretty clever. And yeah, the rest of my range is just going to kind of open fire at whatever I can get. On the first couple of turns, I'm going to pluck down all the gyrocopters he's got on the right side. The ones on the left are going to really prove to be a thorn in my side during this game. I'm only going to get a couple of wounds on them, and they're going to charge in and manage to sneak a little crafty charge in on one of my cannons behind my unit of handgunners there. He slips the gap right in there and manages to kill the handgunners, and will just kind of wreak havoc in between my lines there. While that's happening, he's got a slow and steady advance with his slayers and his handgunners. The slayers are just getting blasted by my range units, a couple of grape shots from the cannons, and yeah. My handgunners are returning fire at his little characters that are sprinting up on me, and the gyrocopters that I already mentioned, but they're taking a lot of casualties, if I'm being honest, from his handgunner unit that's also moving up, and eventually I'm going to have to retreat and kind of copy his maneuver, hide behind that hill to avoid giving him my whole unit in terms of scoring points. So this is when the game kind of started falling apart entirely for me. Up until here, he had like half scoring points on my rangers, and I think the handgunners on the hill. That was it. I had scoring points on 2 cannons, the gyrocopter unit, and only a couple more slayers. If not, they might have actually already been at 50%. I'm not quite sure. But anyways, I was like looking pretty good at this point. I think even if he had control of the watchtower, I was like going to win the game. But what ends up happening is those gyrocopters charge the cannon. They don't kill the cannon crew. They use their stubborn or whatever. They basically like fall back in good order. And the gyrocopters get an opportunity to continue that charge, I believe. And what's going to happen is I was like, okay, I'll have the pony cart, and I had a Doomseeker nearby. And I was like, I'll have them charge in, and hopefully they'll be able to finish them off. I also just have like a complete brain fart, and I put like my PSB of all things. I put them like behind the unit, so when they like fall back or like retreat from the combat, which I figured they were going to be doing, they would like go into him and have to like roll dangerous terrain or get caught and killed or something like that. But that was never going to happen because they fly, so I don't know why I thought I was going to do that. It was also just a dumb thing to do in general. But yeah, I oftentimes I do things like this in my first game in tournaments. I always like play like really poorly, and then like I kind of pull things together on the second or third game. So anyways, I have all these things charge into the gyrocopters. I should have also had the rangers nearby charge in, but I kind of figured it would be okay. Like I said, one of the gyrocopters I think was on 1 wound at this point because it got shot at a ton, and I had the sapper nearby. I think they were making some dangerous terrain tests or something. Yeah, they were pretty weak. But I whiff every single one of my rolls. I roll like the lowest impact hit amounts and deal like no damage at all. He ends up like killing the Doomseeker, and the cart retreats. He then charges into my BSB, just snipes it, kills it, and now he's probably up a ton on victory points. And to add insult to injury, I try to charge it again with the pony cart and my dwarven rangers, and still like I kill like one of the gyrocopters and it just like flies away. And at that point, I pretty much like threw the game, unfortunately. I went from like only giving him like 100 or so, like maybe 200 victory points, to like now he's like 400, 500 victory points or something or other. And he has the watchtower, so it's like completely over. So that was really disappointing. Not my opponent's fault. Like I just like did a series of stupid plays and had a little bit of bad luck, but I could have done things to mitigate that, and I just didn't end up doing it, and kind of just made all the wrong plays at that time, unfortunately. And that's going to kind of explain what happens for the remainder of this game. His slayers move up. They don't end up getting into combat with me. I tried to get into tower range, but unfortunately, by the time this all happened, it was too late. I was never going to get my units up there, and I was sitting in such a good position. I was like, oh, this can't happen. But of course it did. So my slayers couldn't get up there. His slayers get blasted to oblivion by my units. He has 1 slayer remaining, though, so he still gets to keep like pretty much half the points for that unit. He has his characters still in there, and yeah, that's all that's left for them. His handgunners are looking pretty good, but like I said, he lost the gyrocopters on that side. He lost his character that he had on that side as well. He also had a Doomseeker charge at me, and obviously I don't want to kill that, but I kind of had to because it was getting close to the handgunners. And then, yeah, like I said, he ended up getting scoring points on my handgunner unit on the hill. I kept all the characters alive, luckily. He got half points on, I believe, or close. Maybe he was just shy of getting half points on my other handgunner unit. He got half points on my Dwarven Rangers. And yeah, the BSB is just like what gave it to him. So that was a victory for my opponent here. Good game, well played, and just unfortunate. And I'm kind of beating myself over some of those stupid plays I made like halfway through the game because I feel like I was kind of in a pretty good position here, and I just made a series of unfortunate events and kind of threw everything away. But it is what it is, and these things happen in Warhammer. So good game and well played. My next battle was against the Dark Elves, and this was actually my first time going up against the Dark Elves in the old world. I used to have a good friend in like high school back in the day that I would play tons of Warhammer games of 8th edition, I think, at the time. We did 7th edition, and then we went into 8th edition, and yeah, we played tons of games of Bretonnians versus Dark Elves and Ogres versus Dark Elves. That was his main army, and good times. But yeah, I was curious to see how they would play in the old world here. My opponent took a big block of the, what are they called, just Dark Elf Spearmen. He's got the repeater crossbowmen. I think he's got like a block of 20 of those. He's got a kitted out Dark Elf Lord on a dragon. He also has 5 Cold One Knights, and he has 5 of, I'm drawing a blank on what they're called, but they're, I believe, warlocks. They're like mounted casters for the Dark Elves, and he's got 5 warlocks. He also has 8 assassins that are deployed on the far right side of my Dwarven defensive formation that probably looks pretty familiar to the last battle you just saw here in the tournament. He also has a ton of level 2 casters. He has one that is inside of the Warlock unit, another one that's placed inside of the Spearman unit, and then another one that's placed inside the Crossbow unit. The Dark Elves in this edition have the ability, like, once per game to, like, launch out some kind of familiar that they can cast from, like, 10 or 12 inches away. So at certain points, he'll be able to do, like, these really long-range, like, kind of spell turns and, like, sequences at me. So kind of a cool ability. Doesn't end up actually doing too much. If I'm being honest, his magic does barely anything in this game. He was using Demonology, and I don't really recall my magic resistance being the reason. I think he just like had pretty poor spell rolls. I remember he had a miscast pretty early on, took a wound on that, but wasn't anything else other than I just think pretty bad rolling on his spells and kind of being out of range a lot of turns. And I think that was a big factor as well. The familiars didn't really work when he was using them, and then it kind of was like, ah, crap, if I move up any closer, I'm going to be in range of all the dwarven like handguns and whatnot. Like, so yeah, there was a lot of dancing around between us, especially on that left side. His spearmen and crossbows really slowly move up. I think he thought he was going to pull me towards him. He was kind of saying that when we were talking about the game afterwards, but it really didn't end up playing out that way. I was dealing a lot of damage to him, and he definitely had to come to me. Also, sorry I didn't mention this earlier on. This second game was just standard battle lines. You just get normal victory points, no special objectives or anything. I believe the only twist was all the forests are dangerous terrain during this game. But what ended up happening was he put his Cold One Knights and the Warlocks behind the woods. And I remember the Cold One Knights failed their stupidity twice in a row and just kind of stumble forward. The Warlocks decide to eventually lunge out and try to cast some spells. Don't really do too much, and they almost all get blasted. He has the Warlock just barely limp away, I think, during the end of the game. Might have gotten killed, but I think it manages to limp away. The Assassins on the far right side, I think I got first turn. They just get blasted down by all my... Or actually, no, he did get first turn. They just really didn't do too much with their shooting and ended up getting blasted down by my dwarves. So yeah, he pretty much loses everything on that right side. The Cold One Knights take some pretty heavy casualties trying to advance forward and just decide to end up retreating. I want to get the final point on them. My Slayers actually end up charging forward and unfortunately are unable to close the gap, and the last Cold One Knight limps away by the end of this battle. But yeah, what ends up happening is his dragon just desperately starts flying towards me and needs to get into combat and start getting some points because I don't think he had anything at this stage of the battle. And he takes 6 wounds before he gets into combat. I think he takes 7 wounds before he gets into combat. I think he has 9 wounds total. By this stage, Dragon's got 2 wounds left. Manages to close the gap and get into combat with my dwarven handgunners. Things go pretty favorable for him. I only get 1 wound in on the dragon, and through just pursuing me and going a couple of rounds in combat, he pretty much deletes everything in that unit. But it was the final turn. The dragon was at that stage facing the wrong direction and had to just fly away. It wasn't able to charge anything and just needed to get as far away as possible and try to limp away on its final wound. At which point I had every single thing in my army, still ironically pretty close to the dragon, other than the Slayers. I wanted to charge the Slayers in, but I kind of misplayed them and had them try to close off on that final cold one night, which was really dumb. I should have gone for the dragon, but whatever. Anyways, I mean, you would think with like a 10-man unit of dwarven handgunners, I have 2 cannons, I have a character with the bursting flame ruin, 10 dwarven rangers, I have like another character nearby, what's his name, I think I have Burlock or something. I had like 2 or 3 ranged characters like still alive at this point, 3 range units, everything was shooting at this. I did 8 wounds. I think 3 or 4 of them were like Armor Bane 4 or something like that. I don't know. I did a lot of wounds to this thing. And to give the long story short, he passed 8 ward saves on the final turn on his final wound with this dragon. I remember it was that obscene a number. And obviously I don't get any points for that. And because he managed to kill my handgunner unit that he charged into, and he got one of the characters in there as well, we ended up tying on this game, as silly as that is. Nothing against my opponent. I mean, he actually had terrible luck. Pretty much this entire game. So, like, it was kind of overdue that he got, like, this lucky on the final turn. But, like, I mean, I kind of had my jaw dropping on the final turn. I was like, are you serious? Like, what? Like, he just passed 8 5-up ward saves. Yeah, so I did everything I could, but that dragon, it just managed to fly away on that final turn. And I should also say, too, I don't even know if he killed the handgunner unit that he charged into. I know he killed, like, 1 or 2 of the characters in there, but I think, like, during one of the points where we were, like, giving ground and whatnot, like, he actually decided to just, like I said, it was like the final turn, fly away and play it safe and just try to get as far away as possible. I think the Slayers were also kind of close by at that point, so he definitely didn't want that charge happening. Also, too, it looks like in the picture here, like, oh, Cam, why didn't you charge into that dragon right now? It was just out of my charge arc at that time, and that's why I was like, I think I just wanted to get the final point on the cold one or something. I really can't remember, but, like, I made the wrong decision. I should have just moved them as close as possible, and even if he decided to fly away, like, whatever, like, you never know what's going to end up happening with the combat res. So I did make a couple of misplays. I could have positioned a couple of units better. Maybe, like, that would have been enough to just get that final wound in on the dragon. But I think you can understand my point of view here. Like, when you have, like, 2 cannons, again, I don't even think that handgunner unit ended up getting killed. Like, 2 cannons, 2 handgunner units, you got a ranger, you got, like, a couple of pimped out, like, range characters, like, and you're dealing 8 wounds with, like, a pretty decent amount of armor bane and whatnot, like, on them. Like, you would think it would be enough, but it wasn't. And again, I guess I just made, like, the wrong call in this situation, or it was just like the dice gods, and it kind of is what it is, because it's Warhammer, and, you know, and it was a really, really fun game. Again, too, he had really bad luck during the first half, so I think it was kind of overdue that he had some kind of miracle thing like this happen on the final turn. But it did definitely leave me scratching my head afterwards, like, what should I have done? Yeah, good game, though, nonetheless, and we will move on to the final battle in this tournament report. So, for the final game here, I ended up going against perhaps a familiar army to the channel, the Warriors of Chaos. I mentioned some of my buddies and we all signed up for this event. I think we had like 16 people or something that were all signed up for it. And I guess it was a statistical probability at some point I was going to play against one of them in this tournament. So for the final game here, I got matched up against my buddies Warriors of Chaos Army. And I will be very quick on this one because I got to be honest, it was a brutal game. this is what our deployment kind of looked like, and basically I have my Doom Seekers just charge forward, and especially in that center area where that tower is, they just end up clogging so much of the Chaos Warriors up. They win their first combat, they charge into a unit of Hounds, they overrun into a unit of Marauders, and I can understand why he did it. He had like a unit of Trolls, and then like I think maybe one other thing charge into it just to make sure it was gonna die. But it ended up really kind of clogging up his line a little bit and delaying him a turn or two, and more importantly, giving me a turn or two more of shooting. Everything on his left side just got gunned down, and pretty much everything that closed the gap with me after dealing with that Doom Seeker got obliterated by shooting as well. He did have a unit of Marauders, I think, close the gap, maybe a Troll or something, and he got like half scoring points on my 10-man or 9-man handgunner unit with the Sapper. He got into combat with them, cleaved down half the unit. He actually might have killed the whole thing by the end, I can't quite remember. Also, one of my cannons misfired and blew up. Yeah, I think that was about it, though. I also had a Dwarven Ranger unit on the far side. I think he got scoring points on them. He killed all of them with a Gore Beast Chariot. But, yeah, his Gore Beast Chariots both got blasted before they could do anything else. And all he was pretty much left with was, like, a Marauder unit and the Chosen. And we were playing the Breakpoint scenario for the final game here. So at that point, he was just well below the breaking point for his army, and he had to instantly kind of rout, and I got a hefty chunk of victory points out of this one, that's for sure. But it was definitely, you kind of see a brutal game. He managed to close the gap with like my Rangers, killed them with his Chariot, I remember that. He might have killed the Sapper handgunner unit, and I had a cannon blow up, but that was about it. And yeah, it was pretty much max points that I could get in terms of like what I did to the enemy. So that was a victory for our final game, but I ended up breaking even, I guess you could say, because I lost one, I tied one, and then I won one. So interesting series of events and battle reports here for my first tournament in Warhammer the Old World. So, first thing I want to talk about is just like the games themselves that I played in. The first game, the guy that I actually played against ended up winning this event. I think he came in first place with that Dwarven Expedition Force. So that's pretty cool. Also kind of told me that if I kind of tweak things around, maybe played this list a little bit better, it could probably do pretty solid in what you would call the meta of today's Warhammer the Old World, which was definitely kind of what we were seeing in a lot of the lists at this event. But yeah, my opponents, I kind of want to talk about that. The guy that I played against in the first game, super knowledgeable, great guy to play against. He was kind of the person that recommended like doing that slight tweak with my BSB as well, and I really like that. I'm totally going to do that. Beat myself up over that game because I made like some stupid plays halfway through and kind of lost like a commanding position, I feel like. But it was a really, really fun game. Great guy to play against, and I would definitely be looking forward to more games against him. Second game, I mean, honestly, I got the same thing to say. That guy was a blast to play against, and as salty as I might be about that dragon passing like 8 ward saves on the final turn, I'm honestly kind of glad that something like that did end up happening, because I was feeling pretty like down in the dumps, honestly, for my opponent in this game. The first like 2/3 of this game was just him having terrible roll after terrible roll. None of these spells are working, or if they are working, they're only killing like one guy or something, and just failing all the stupidity tests. And yeah, he just kind of had a really rough game, and I don't think he really understood like what kind of list I had and how to play against it. He was kind of talking about this with me afterwards, and yeah, I could tell it was a bit of a learning experience for him probably, and I think that's actually another reason why it's pretty cool. We ended up with a tie there at the very end because, you know, it just all that misfortune through like 2/3 of the game, but then everything kind of pulled through for him on those final turns, and the dragon ended up getting to limp away on that final wound. That is kind of cool, even though like I'm playing against him and I really wanted those points. I can't deny that like the series of events and everything that happened there was pretty epic nonetheless. And the final game, I mean, I won't harp on it too long, but, like, I honestly, like, we spent some time, me and my buddy's Chaos list that he took there, planning that list out. I didn't take any pictures of it, but he actually went up against that Empire list that you saw in like all the other battle reports here in the video, and he's like the only person in all the games that I played that smashed it down. I mean, you saw what happened in all those other games. They were either insanely close in a tie, or like the Empire like kind of just barely squeak away with like a victory. No one was smashing that list down, and he was the only person that had a list that just came in, cleaved everything down in the way, and it actually like deleted my greatsword unit. So I was a little surprised to see like it do so poorly in these games, but like I don't know, when you think about like the tournament meta and like what everyone had, it is kind of an uphill battle for Chaos Infantry, and like that's definitely what most of that list is. But in his defense, that's kind of all he had available, and like he normally really likes infantry, and that was like kind of his main thing in like the prior editions of Warhammer. So like I don't know, he really wants to make it work in this one. He really likes Khorne, he wants to stick to that theme, and we're trying to do our best to figure out how to make that happen in this edition. So I think we got to go back to the drawing board, try to figure out like what kind of magic item and chaos blessing combinations we can do, or what are they called, like the chaos mutation things. Like there are a lot of cool abilities with those, like figuring out some kind of combo with those things that can benefit these infantry units and make it so they can get their points back in a typical game of like these stronger monster elite metas of Warhammer that we kind of are seeing nowadays. But in regards to the game we played, he was obviously like a really good sport about it, and like yeah, it was quick and easy. I did kind of, like I said, feel bad about that game. It definitely wasn't like super. I mean, I'm having fun, yeah, shooting stuff and gunning it down, but like you normally want a game to be a little bit more competitive and evenly matched and whatnot, and like that definitely wasn't the case for that game. And it kind of sounded like it wasn't the case for his second game either. His first game was kind of the only one he had that was like really close and like actually a competitive game of Warhammer. So a little bit unfortunate for the Chaos this game. I'm glad he was a good sport about it, and he had enough fun playing all of those games and going to the event to want to talk about it afterwards and want to keep playing Warhammer and all that stuff. So we'll see how he does in future games of the old world with the Khorne Force. I talked a little bit during those games about things that I could have done better with my list, things I could have tweaked. I'm definitely thinking about going back to the drawing board with a couple of things, especially like the characters and like that Thane. But I do really like the list I had. I think I just need to learn how to pilot it a little bit better and command all the infantry during like those pivotal points and make all the right calls. Don't throw my commanding positions that I tend to be getting in these games, like during the first couple of turns. I think during each of these battles, that's like the area I was sitting in, and either I ended up losing it due to stupidity or just like the dice gods and whatnot. So yeah, I gotta make sure I don't do that in my future battles with this list. So that's kind of my thoughts on like myself, the dwarves, like the list that I brought, my opponents that I got to play against, all that stuff. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun during the event. But now I want to talk about the actual event itself. I haven't played in a Warhammer event in a long time. The last one was a 40k event, and it was for, I want to say, 9th edition. I played Imperial Guard, I think, and it was not a lot of fun. I ended up like kind of, I think it was a multiple day event, but like after like the first day or something, I ended up kind of just dropping out of it. I signed up with a buddy as well, and he was just like, yeah, no, I'm not like really enjoying this. I really haven't actually played 40k since then. It kind of left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth for the game, and it was nothing like against like the people or anything. That was the game itself. I was kind of done with it at that time. But yeah, this was my first Warhammer kind of event I played in, and I mean, when we're talking Warhammer, like Warhammer Fantasy, I haven't played an event in a store in probably like 15, 16 years, and when I did, it was like at an actual Games Workshop store, so it's been a really long time. So yeah, I kind of wanted to talk about my thoughts of playing in like a Warhammer event like this. Especially considering recently I've been playing in Star Wars Legion tournaments, like at stores, and doing a little bit of discussion on how those events went and everything. So I think it's kind of like nice to have that as a bit of like a tabletop war game comparison point. Now, I kind of just signed up for this event, posted the list, like did all the stuff on the app, whatnot. And yeah, showed up to this store for the first time, new community, all of that stuff. So I'm a bit of a foreigner to this event, you could say, in like this community. But from an outsider looking in, I do have to comment on some stuff. Especially because I had like a lot of friends also playing in this event, and I got a lot of feedback from them, obviously. And yeah, I just want to kind of give the thoughts on everything here. I think there were some issues when it came to the rule lawyering and or the refereeing. And like, I really, the person we had one person trying to do this role for like, I think a 16-player event. So like, I really don't mean anything ill-spirited towards this person. Like seriously, they were doing the absolute best they can. And I'm sure by the end of this event, like they were like probably sweating, being like, oh my god, like that was a lot, and that was a lot of work, and kudos to them for doing that. But it does have to be said, like there were definitely a lot of situations where people were kind of having issues with rules, and either we didn't have people available that knew the rules like readily at hand and would kind of hold up games. We would get improper rulings. There would be one person on one side of the board that would be like, oh no, this is how it works, and like the other person on the other side's pretty sure it doesn't work that way. And like I think this is something that I recall. This is why I mentioned 40K as well. Like I think it's a common kind of thing that happens in Warhammer games. And like, I don't think this is against anyone in particular. It's just kind of the nature of the games. But things like this were kind of happening a lot. And I think having additional people available that are very knowledgeable of those rule sets would have probably benefited things and like the smoothness of the event and whatnot. And again, too, I actually had a pretty easy time with it. And a lot of times the person that I played against in the first game, the dwarf player that ended up winning the thing, he was incredibly knowledgeable. And a lot of times too, the guy that was like kind of the referee and stuff, if he wasn't sure on something, he would just like confirm it with that guy. He was very knowledgeable, and he was almost like kind of a step-in ref for people when they needed like a quick reference. And I think that is like great to have, and a big reason why I actually really enjoyed playing against him. I learned a lot, a couple of little things that like I thought I knew about Old World, but I didn't, and it was great like playing against him and getting that like experience under my belt. But I really think they needed like a couple more people kind of like that, readily available to help out with these games. Or maybe since, we're a little bit early on still in the birth of like Warhammer the Old World. I mean, the game isn't even a year old yet. Maybe a smaller point percentage would have been a beneficial thing, just to keep like the rules a little bit simpler and keep things a little bit more tamed in the lists. Maybe that's something that would have helped. I don't know. Just something I wanted to comment on. This other one, I hope this doesn't come across as petty or anything. It really isn't supposed to. But, like, I enjoy in the Legion events we play in, we do the same kind of buy-in for the event. Normally it's like $20 to play in, and almost all the money either's going, like, to the actual event and then, like, a bit to the store. And, yeah, like, I think that's all fine. And that's the exact same way this event was. The problem was I was a little bit skeptical of the way they did like the cash prizes and or the prizes themselves. They had a raffle that they did. Basically, like first place got $100 and I think second got 80, third 50, something like that. It's like the same payout that we get in Legion. That part's all cool. I like that. It makes a lot of sense. The part that I thought was weird is they had a raffle, and what happened was some random person in the event would get like $150 from the raffle. And I just thought that was a little weird, because like, why is this random person getting like way more money than the person that got first place in this event? I think that's kind of weird, and I'm not opposed to like the raffle thing. I think that's fine, but I don't know. I just kind of wish they used that in a funner way for the event. To give an example, like when we play in those Legion events, you hear me talk about this all the time. Like, I don't think it matters what place you get in. You get some like cool little promo cards that actually like have your stats and everything for the Legion characters. Like it's something you can use for the game. Sometimes you just get cool dice. Like, I don't know. There's just like all kinds of cool little things they give for Legion. I remember in the last Legion event I played in, it was absolutely hilarious. Like the guy who got last place had got gifted a copy of The Last Jedi. They were like, for last place, your punishment is you gotta watch The Last Jedi. And I thought that was absolutely hilarious. Like, I don't know, just like fun little things like that. I really would like to see something like that. And then just like kind of handing those out during the event and stuff. I think that like kind of keeps people involved and interested and whatnot. And I feel like they have promo stuff like that for Warhammer. So I just kind of wish it went towards something like that instead of like just everything going towards a random raffle. I don't know. I just kind of thought that was a little bit lame, if I'm being honest. And I hope that doesn't sound like petty out of me, because like I'm not trying to say like I needed to get something out of this. Like, no, I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying in comparison to the other events I played in, like Legion, I just felt like that was being used a bit more funner and efficiently, like for all the people playing in the event. And that's all I'm trying to get across with this. And again, like, this is not like supposed to be hard criticism or like you need to do it this way. This is just kind of me giving my general thoughts, opinions, and comparison to other recent tabletop war game events I've played in. This one, I don't really know. It's kind of a complicated series of things, but I will say the last time I played in a Warhammer event, it was a 40k event, and me and another friend of mine were playing and kind of like, yeah, I don't know about this game. I think we're kind of done with it and stepped away from 40k at that time. And I mean, I should note, actually, we hadn't played 40k for years, and we're like, oh, let's give this edition a try. And we stepped into it like a couple of years into 9th edition, like I said, and gave it like a good couple months, maybe a year of play, and like that was like the first or second tournament thing we had given a try, and yeah, it was just miserable, and we ended up kind of just stepping away from 40k after that. And well, I gotta say, after this tournament, I didn't really get to have words with the person or anything and like get their full opinion, so this like could be completely off, but like I did kind of feel like there were a couple of players that might have had that exact experience that like I had during that tournament, and I feel really bad if that's the case. Again, I'm hoping not, and maybe I'm just being like looking into this too much. But yeah, I kind of think there were some people that had that experience with the game. I don't think that has anything to do with the prior stuff I was talking about. I think actually what that has more to do with is the actual nature of the game. I'll get into that in a little bit further into this discussion part here. But yeah, there were definitely some people afterwards that I think were not left scratching their head like I was, being like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. More scratching their head like, what is this game I'm playing right now? And yeah, I obviously am a little disappointed to have that be the case, and again, I hope I'm wrong about this and they continue to play Warhammer the Old World, because I had a lot of fun in this event, and like I said, the people I played against, I had a great time. Each of those games was a blast. Maybe not the last one, because like that was a bit of a rough game, but yeah, like it was a good enough event for me, and I would definitely play in another for sure. And I really hope that's the case for these other people. Maybe it's just like, you know, they're not tournament people, and that's totally fair as well. But this is kind of what I was going to comment on later here. I think the nature of Warhammer the Old World, the way the game plays, the structure of the lists and things that you can kind of create in it, it fosters this nature of bringing very, very elite things, and they're going to go in and they're going to either pound face in melee, or they're going to pound face in range, or they're going to spam you with magic. And if the opponent is, you know, kind of ill-equipped to deal with those things, like they don't have something elite enough to tank it, or they just don't get the charge and your elite stuff goes in first, there's very little opportunity kind of for counterplay in Old World, I find. Like, you know, I'm just like giving like my general opinion based on like some of these games that I saw and like what I think kind of happened. So, like, you know, you kind of bring, like, this average thing, and someone brings, like, a bunch of super dragon ogres, and they charge in, and they're gonna smash down your stuff, and, like, you're probably not gonna get a chance to do much back, and then, you know, it's just gonna kind of be this series of unfortunate events normally afterwards. Unless, like, you can plan out your counter charges and positioning and stuff really cleverly, and, like, that's the part I like about the game, but, like, I think a lot of other people are kind of getting bogged down on that first part, and, like, that sequence of events happening a lot of times in their game, and they're kind of just left being like, well, what am I supposed to do? And, like, they're just kind of constantly taking beatings without getting that opportunity to go back. And again, I think it's just kind of something that is, like, fostered into Old World with, like, the incentive towards these really elite units, monsters, and just tons of characters and stuff. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, that's what I saw in, like, 2 of the lists, and I mean, even kind of the 3rd list too, like, and then beyond just the lists that I played against specifically, that's what I saw in, like, all the other stuff on the battlefield. I saw so many dragons, I saw so many monsters, tons of chariots, just giant blocks of elite things, or just tar pit things surrounded by elite things. Like, yeah, and it's like, if you don't go to these extremes, you're kind of gonna suffer, it seems like. And I was fortunate enough that, like, you know, it seemed like I had a pretty good time during my event, but, like, I think there were a lot of people that were kind of in that situation, and it kind of left them with a bit of a sour taste for the game. And again, I hope that, like, they'll go back to the drawing boards and be like, all right, like, what can I do to improve that? Like, what can I take to... That's kind of what I was talking about with, like, the Chaos list and stuff in my buddy. And I know he's going to be playing again. He already played, like, a game or two since this tournament. So I know it's, like, not the end of the world for him. I hope he's, like, you know, like, going to be like these other people that I'm hoping for. Like, going to constantly be like, all right, I need to do this, I need to do that, reassess my strategies and stuff. Or just, like, play the game a bit more casually and just try to have fun and, like, play at home and stuff and play with your buddies and stuff, if that's the case, and maybe you're just not a tournament person. Regardless of, like, how you play the game, I just hope you keep up with the hobby and stuff and you have fun with it at the end of the day. And there are opportunities for you to have that fun. And yeah, I think that was something that was kind of missing for some people in the current meta for this game during this event, and I couldn't help but notice it. Not really much I think the event people could do to solve issues like that. That's well beyond, like, what they should be handling. It's just something I wanted to comment on. But again, I want to be all doom and gloom here. This is just my constructive feedback and experience that I had and some other people with Warhammer the Old World, things that I was kind of observing during the event. All in all, again, I had a lot of fun during this event. I had a great time. I'm looking forward to hopefully playing in some more Warhammer the Old World events at, like, stores and stuff like this again soon. I got to meet some awesome new people. Looking forward to some rematches against some of the people I played against in this event. We were already talking about, like, what armies we had, what other kind of matchups we could do in future games. So that'll be some cool stuff to get on the channel here. And yeah, I really enjoyed what I had there in Old World. Definitely, I can kind of relate to some of that stuff I was talking about earlier, like the nature of the game and kind of the units and the armies that I'm seeing. I can kind of relate to some of that stuff, but again, overall, my experience was really, really solid, and I just want to give both sides of, like, that feedback, because it is something that I observed, and I think it's important to comment on and for other people to know about. So yeah, great time for me, and I'm looking forward to more Warhammer the Old World. It definitely has been a lot of the focus lately, so I might kind of do 1 or 2 more battle report event type things. I'm hoping to get a stat sheet out for Frank and Orc on the channel sometime soon here, hopefully before Halloween. And yeah, then I might kind of transfer over, do a little bit of Legion stuff, do maybe a couple of bolt action battle reports and whatnot, because it was a lengthy process doing 11 battle reports here, I can tell you that much. And as you can see here, I got a little bit of a stat sheet update to all of the games that I've either played in or my friends have, like, played in, and given me, like, proper battle reports on all the stuff that happened during the game, so I can, like, confirm the win, loss, the draw, all that stuff, who they played against, etc., etc. This includes all the event stats from the tournament as well. So this is, like, our most updated series of stats here for Warhammer the Old World. And you can see we have played quite a bit of games of Warhammer the Old World. So again, I might kind of shift my focus, take a little bit of a break on this, do a couple of battle reports of something else for like a month or two, and then probably go back to Warhammer. I always end up going back to Warhammer. I absolutely love fantasy and Old World as well. For me, it's been a lot of fun. I've been enjoying the game and what it is, and I'm also someone that's kind of like, oh, okay, well, like, if infantry and this and that isn't doing too well, like, how can I make it work? And I'm kind of looking at it as a bit of a challenge, and maybe that'll help inform a new army or project that I'm going to be working on in the future here. We'll have to see. Yeah, that's going to conclude everything here, though, folks. I think this video has gone on long enough. I hope you enjoyed everything. Let me know what you thought of the battle reports, the tournament, my lists, the thoughts that I had on the event and everything, my thoughts on Warhammer the Old World. Maybe I'm just being too doomy and gloomy. I hope I'm not. I hope I'm like just trying to give like a good balanced report here of everything I observed. And again, I'm trying to state like I had a lot of fun. So yeah, that's it, everyone. Have a great day. Talk to you all later. Bye-bye.